He shrugged. She wasn't looking for him to shrug. She wanted something more than a shrug. She wanted him to get angry for her. But he just shrugged. He snorted. She wasn't looking for him to snort at her. Instead, she was looking for him to agree with her. And not to agree with her, at least to show her a little bit of respect. But he just snorted. Really? Why are you so ridiculous? He shrugged. He snorted. And it hurt. Oh, and more than hurt, it's maddening. Something familiar? When we listen to the genealogy of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham, we hear some snorting. The first that might come to mind would be something that's not spelled out for us, but we read between the lines with the wife of Abraham, Sarah. When Sarah was 89 years old. 89. When Sarah was 89 years old, the Lord and a couple of his angels dropped in to chat with Abraham. They promised that in a year, Abraham and Sarah would have a son. Now, we're not told that Sarah snorted, but she laughed. No, she didn't laugh one of those happy laughs where you laugh with God. No, it wasn't one of those happy laughs with God. She laughed at God. Really? How ridiculous can you be? God was more ticked than tickled. And so he called her up and said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" That's a good one to remember, isn't it? A couple weeks ago, we heard more snorting. King Ahaz didn't like what the prophet Isaiah was offering. Ahaz was in trouble. And God was offering a way out of that trouble with a special sign. Any sign to prove that he would get Ahaz out of that trouble. But Ahaz, he didn't want to get on board with God. And so he wasn't about to accept anything that God might be offering him. And he answered with a smile. Now when Sarah snorted, God was patient. When Ahaz snorted, God's patience ran out. And King Ahaz was cut down to be put Ahaz. God's not a big fan of people snorting in his face or laughing behind his back. You ever snorted at God? Have you ever snorted at God? You ever laugh at God like what he says is nonsense? For example, if God were to say something like this, how about you and I, how about we get together every week? You come over to my place, we get together every week, and I'm going to help you. I'll recharge you for that new week. I'll help you refocus and get ready for that new week. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for us together as a family. If God were to say something like that, do you think anybody might snort like that? Have you ever heard somebody snort like that? I think we have, haven't we? And if not this morning, some other mornings, we've probably heard that snorting going on in our own heads a few times over the years. Or a little bit different. I think of God passing out money. Passing out money to get us through a week, to get us through a month, to take care of us. And God has us stand with money. And what does God say? God says, give one first to God, one first for God. And then one for you, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for go first to God, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for you. If God were to say something like that, do you think anybody would snort at him? What do you think such a snort might sound like? Really? Are you kidding me? We're supposed to make do with that? Have you ever heard that kind of snort like that? I imagine at some time or other we've all snorted at God like that. Oh, we might not make the sound that comes through our noses, but we still say things or think things that sound like we think God's a fool. Like God doesn't know what he's talking about, but we know better than God. Or maybe instead of snorting at God, we just shrug. We hear God and we shrug and go off and do our own things. We hear God's promise of love, how God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. How Jesus so loved the world that he gave up heaven to go to a cross for us. We hear God's love for us, and then we hear God's call to us. God's call to join him in doing what he's doing, looking to share the life and the love of God with the world. Hearing all that, hearing God's love, hearing God's call, what might a shrug sound like? Look, I imagine that shrug might sound look like this. Oh, that sounds really nice. Someday I'd like to get in and be part of that. But right now I'm really kind of busy. That might be the way a shrug would look and sound. Which do you think which is worse? A snort or a shrug? Which hurts more? The snort or the shrug? Which do you think would make God more angry? The snorting at him, or shrugging him off to go do our own thing? Thank God that those are the only two options we have. Thank God that we have another option, a different option. When God called Abraham to leave his old life behind, to leave his home and his extended family behind, to go to this somewhere that God knew, but no one else. When God called Abraham didn't snort. Really? What you thinking? He didn't shrug. Oh, come on, I've got things going on. No, Abraham didn't shrug, he didn't snort. Instead, Abraham did what the Lord had told him. With Sarah, his wife, they left behind their homeland, they left behind their extended family, and they went to this place that only God could bring. They left the old life behind to start new, to live a new life that God had for them. How did it work out for them? Oh, it wasn't an easy life. It wasn't always easy or convenient, but they seem to be pretty happy today, don't they? A few generations later in the genealogy of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham, we come across Rahab. Rahab was a businesswoman in Jericho before the walls came tumbling down. Rahab had heard what the Lord had done to those kings, those armies that had snorted at God, those kings and armies that had shrugged God off. Rahab knew what side she wanted to be on. And so when the Lord called her to put her life on the line to protect God's people, Rahab didn't snort and she didn't shrug. Instead, Rahab put her life on the line and lived the new life that the Lord had for her. How did it work out for Rahab? I don't think we get to say that it was an easy life for her, but she seems to be pretty happy with it. Then a few generations later, we meet Ruth, a young Moabite widow. Life had been hard for Ruth. But she didn't snort at God. She didn't shrug God off. Instead, she followed She followed and left her old life, her old homeland behind to take on whatever life the Lord would give her. Just a few generations after that, 3 generations, we meet David. When the prophet Samuel anointed shepherd boy David to be king over Israel, David didn't smart. He didn't shrug, oh yeah. Instead, David stepped up to take on Goliath and live the new life that God had for him. Let's fast forward. We'll fast forward to the end of the genealogy of Mary and Joseph. When Mary heard from Gabriel that she would have a son, the Son of the Most High, when Joseph heard from the angel of the Lord that he should take Mary home to be with him, that what was growing in Mary, who was growing in Mary, was conceived by the Holy Spirit, Joseph, Mary, they didn't shrug, really. They didn't snort. They didn't shirk. They didn't buy. Instead, whatever plans they had, they changed their plans to live the new life that God had for them. Why? God had a promise for them. And more than that, God made them to be part of his promise. Now, it didn't always make sense. It wasn't always easy or convenient. It could and would get in the way of what they were doing. It could and would get in the way of their plans. It could and would be that they had to change what they had in mind and to do something else. It could and would be living a life that wouldn't always be convenient or easy or make sense. But it was too good a promise to scorn it. It was too good a promise to shrug off. And so they left their old lives behind to live the new life that God had for them. Sounds like someone else we know, doesn't it? His old life was pretty good. He was up there in heaven, ruling over the universe as the Son of God. But God called him to leave that old life, to make himself nothing, to take on the form of nature of a servant, to be born like us. God called him to leave his old life behind, to take our place and start a new life for us. Now, Jesus' new life wasn't always easy or convenient. It didn't always make sense. But Jesus didn't snort. He didn't shrug off. He didn't shirk what God was giving, no matter what God gave him to do. He didn't snort. He didn't shrug. He didn't shirk. Instead, he lived the life that God gave him. Even when living the life that God gave him meant taking our place as guilty. Can you think of those times when you may have shirked or shrugged at God or snorted at God? We know how angry that makes us when people do that to us, right? Can you imagine how angry that would make us? But Jesus took our place and took what we had done. Without snorting, without shrugging, without shirking. He took our place. Why? Because God had a plan and a promise for him. A plan and a promise that today has Jesus living and ruling in heaven with a promise for you. Today, God is calling you to leave behind your own life, your own self. And with that call comes a promise. Whatever I'll do, whatever shirking, whatever shrugging, whatever snorting, whatever you did, all that's forgiven, all that's forgotten. And with that promise comes a call, another promise. Today, with Jesus, God says, I have a new life for you. It won't always be easy or convenient. It won't always make sense. But it comes with a promise too good to scorn it, too good to shrug off, too good to shirk. He says, live the life that I have. And I will bless you like I blessed Abraham and Sarah, Rahab and Ruth, David, Mary and Joseph, Jesus. Trust me in this, he says, and I will lift you up for the light of heaven. That's where we get to fit into the genealogy of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham. In the family of God, looking ahead to life we're good together. God bless your new year, living his new life.